What is going on, YouTube? Andrew Miller from Hook'emHeadlines.com coming back at y'all today with a video that I think I promised a little more than a week ago. Um, we're looking at some of the priority recruits in Texas's 2024 class, updating their status heading into the spring, where Texas stands with, a lot of these top targets in the 2024 class, and then ultimately how they could fit, and what positional needs could potentially be addressed. We'll be going through 10 of the recruits that I think have the highest priority in the 2024 class. I did an article last week talking about the four must get recruits for Texas in the 2024 class. And all four of those names will pop up on this list. It's kind of shifted a little bit for me as I've, kind of continue to dive deep and go through the offer lists and the visitor lists for the spring. But a lot of movement on the recruiting trail. Texas probably about to pick up a lot of steam here starting around like May and June. Maybe a couple spring commitments as well, but I think the summertime is where you're really going to see the 2024 class start adding some numbers, similar to the 2023 class last year. But yeah, some of these names might be guys that are in the 2024 class, come summertime. So let's go ahead and dive in with some honorable mentions here. There's like 5-6 names that I pulled together that I at least wanted to give some mention to that, from the perspective of where Texas is prioritizing these guys that, I would completely understand if people were viewing them as top 10 level priority recruits. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump in. The first honorable mention, Bryant Wesco, a 4-star wide receiver out of Midlothian High School, around 6'2", 6'3", I think like 175 pounds, plays above his, I like to say plays above his height. He's got tremendous vertical ability. The kid's just a baller on the outside. I got to watch him at Pylon 7v7, and I've paid pretty close attention to his 7v7 tape and camp tape otherwise. The 7v7 at Pylon was my second time getting to see him in person, but first time was at camp last year. The year-over-year growth is pretty crazy for him. This year is the year where his recruitment has really popped off to the point where like he's become like a top 75 level recruit for most of the major recruiting services. And he really looks the part. He's a recent Texas offer. The reason why he's not actually on the top 10 list is because I think there's 2 or 3 wide receivers that are going to have a higher priority than him at this point. He's got some longstanding relationships on the OU staff, on the TCU staff, and he's picked up a ton of offers here in the last few months. So I don't know if I wouldn't say it's necessarily too late for Texas to get in here, but Texas would have a lot of ground to make up. So while I do feel like Wesco is a great in-state offer and a really great prospect, and honestly an ideal fit at boundary receiver in Sark's offense, I don't love Texas's chances in this recruitment right now, but definitely one worth following, especially if Texas gets him to campus here in the next few months. Next on the list, I have 4-star IMG Academy safety, Jordon Johnson-Rubell. I really, really like this kid. He's an interesting evaluation from the perspective that I think there's a few different positions he could play for Texas's defense. And I think he's got a good relationship with Blake Gideon, also being recruited by Terry Joseph. He has visited Texas, I believe, a couple of times. One time last summer and then again last fall. He did also receive some in-person visits, from my understanding, from Texas staff. I believe that was late January, early February time period. So there's definitely a lot of interest still here between him and the Texas staff. He's someone that could play at like nickel or safety. And I believe he's either from or he has lived in the DFW area for a little while. So someone that someone that has ties to the area. I would need to look back on my notes here, but it makes sense that he's on Texas's radar. Texas tries to recruit very multiple defensive backs that can be cross-trained between nickel, safety, and potentially even cornerback. And so, he checks a lot of the boxes of what Texas looks for at defensive back. And so I think he's someone to definitely keep an eye on. Next up, I have a couple of running backs outside of the top 10. The first one up is four-star Longview running back Taylor Tatum. Tatum is someone that has a lot of in-state interest. I think it's largely going to come down to a few in-state schools that duke it out to win his commitment. Baylor, Texas A&M are a few of the schools to watch here early on, but Texas is also a school that's made a big move here recently. Tatum was on campus for the junior day back in January, on the weekend of January 21st. And that's where it seemed like it really clicked. He was on campus for a visit last fall. I believe it was for the Alabama game. And coming out of that visit, I didn't hear a whole lot of buzz surrounding Texas, but it seems like Tashard Choice and Tatum were really able to connect. And just in general, that Tatum was able to connect with, the 40 acres, the campus, and, just being able to see himself in Austin a little bit more during his junior day visits early this offseason. So, talented kid, rated as, I believe, a top 50 running back by most of the recruiting services, or at least in that generic area. I know top 100 by every single one of them. And so it brings a lot of talent to the table. He's one of the guys that if Texas ends up taking like two really talented running backs in this class, that I know if he wanted in, there would be a spot open for him. The other running back is four-star San Antonio Veterans Memorial product, James Peoples. Peoples has been one of the running backs that's been pretty high up on my list if Texas does take two running backs as to who one of them could be. He's seen his stock rise to a pretty decent degree in the last 6 or 8 months. Really since his junior season at Veterans Memorial, his recruitment has really popped off. Texas, Ohio State, TCU, some schools to watch here. He's visited Texas a handful of plenty of times since last summer. I believe 4 or 5. He was another one of the ones on campus for junior day last month, and it sounds like another visit will be in the cards for spring or summer. I like Texas's chances here. They made the top 7 for him. Again, another one where Tashard Choice has a really, really good relationship. And again, I like where Texas stands. Moving to the defensive line, which I will highlight plenty on this channel, and I've highlighted plenty on the site. The defensive line is a huge position of need and position of emphasis in the 2024 class for Bo Davis and the Longhorns. And one of the guys to watch is going to be 3-star or 4-star, depending on the service you look at. Florida native defensive lineman DeAndre Robinson. He's a product of Jones High School in Orlando, Florida. Someone that at the moment I think is a little bit under-recruited, but he's pretty firmly entrenched with a lot of the schools that have offered him. Texas is one of those schools in the mix. You also got a lot of the in-state behemoths there, Florida State, Florida, even Georgia is one of the schools in the mix here. Robinson stands at about 6'2", 6'3", somewhere in that area, about 300, 305 pounds. Definitely a big human, someone that can move bodies in the trenches. Fleet of foot. I think he's a good fit in terms of what Texas is looking for. Clearly he's got a lot of SEC interest right now. He'd be the type of guy that you want to get in the trenches upon that move to the SEC in 2024. Texas definitely made a move when he visited. He was also on campus for junior day last month, and it sounds like another visit in the near future will definitely be in the cards. I would imagine that among his official visits, Texas will definitely be one of the schools considered. Like I said, Robinson is one of the more recent defensive linemen to appear on Texas's radar, but definitely someone to watch heading into the spring. The next defensive lineman up, and the guy that will round out the honorable mentions, is one of the fast risers on Texas's radar, 3-star, 4-star, again, depending on the service you look at. Duncanville defensive lineman Alex January. I do like this kid's game. There's some recruiting services that are higher on him than I am, just from like a personal evaluation perspective and a fit at Texas perspective. If you look at I think it's On3 has him as almost a top 200 prospect in the nation. I don't know if I'd be ready to put him there yet before he really is able to kind of have a breakout season at Duncanville. He's building up to that. He's someone that looks the part physically. He's got plenty of size, moves well in the trenches, is pretty good in run defense. Pretty good as a pass rusher, but still needs some refinement there. In terms of where Texas stands with him, you got to love their positioning. Bo Davis, Jeff Banks, the entire Texas staff has formed a really good relationship with him and his family. And, I could see him being one of the next commits to join this class. Like, I've mentioned this on the site too in the last month or so, that if there's someone on this sort of a list to pick as the next commit up in the class, he might be it. He would probably be a good bet. I don't know how much longer his recruitment will go. So again, a name to watch, and someone that Texas has definitely prioritized. Definitely, I think there's a spot for him in this class. This will probably be 3 or 4 defensive linemen that end up in this class when it's all said and done. So moving into the top 10 here, and the first one up on this list is definitely a dominant defensive lineman. Someone that if Texas can manage to nab him out of Louisiana, it will be one of the biggest wins on the recruiting trail, of any for this cycle or any recent classes for the Longhorns. That is 5-star, 6'5", 285-pound. I believe it's a Acadiana defensive lineman, Dominic McKinley. Again, McKinley is his game is something to behold. Elite with a number of traits: good bend, good first step, excellent hands, good strength, great frame. I mean, he looks the part of a future first-round pick in the NFL draft. There's a reason why a lot of major SEC programs were after him right away. Texas is definitely squarely in the mix. It's always tough for me to say that Texas is going to be able to go into Louisiana and win a defensive recruitment for a guy like McKinley. LSU has hit a really good stride on the recruiting trail lately. And, if history tells us anything, again, this will be a tough one to win. But Texas has worked some magic in Louisiana in the last few cycles. They landed Derek Williams, 5-star safety over LSU in the 2023 class. So I'm not going to count Texas out here. This is one that they're putting a lot of effort into. Again, Bo Davis has worked some magic on the recruiting trail in the last couple of classes. So Texas squarely in the mix here. He visited again for Junior Day, another one of those names to watch. It's also taken recent visits to LSU and OU. I would watch for him to visit during the spring or summer. The next one up on this list is one of my favorite skill recruits that Texas is going after in the 2024 class. That's a 4-star Brownsboro wide receiver, Kyle Baker. 6'3", about 175 pounds. One of the fastest risers among in-state wide receivers, and for a good reason. He is, I think, one of the most productive wide receivers in this class. Still, there are some recruiting services that have him outside the top 100, outside the top 150. I don't agree with that in the slightest. I think he looks the part as at least a top 15 wide receiver in this class. Can play a few different positions. He's got a little bit of a deep threat element. He's good in the open field. He can go up and get those contested 50-50 balls, vertically gifted, a good route runner, good hands. He pretty much checks all the boxes for what you'd be looking for out of a blue chip wideout, especially with that 6'3" frame. I think Texas is in a good spot with him right now, and this is going to be one of the biggest recruitments to watch at wide receiver moving forward. Chris Jackson, also worth noting, new Texas wide receivers coach Chris Jackson has done a nice job connecting with him since he was hired last month. So, again, one of the top wide receiver targets to watch in this class is Kyle Baker. Next up is 4-star Lancaster safety Corian Gibson. This is someone that Texas has been after for a little while now. If you follow Texas recruiting pretty close, you probably are familiar with this name. But Gibson continues to be someone that Texas is prioritizing in the 2024 class. I highly doubt that there are going to be more safeties that you see that Texas is putting more into in terms of like devoting attention and energy on the recruiting trail into someone. Gibson's been around campus for a couple of years now. He's visited Texas, I think it's 4 or 5 times, with the first one coming a little bit more than 1 year ago. I believe that was the Junior Day last offseason around that time. He was also in for Junior Day this offseason. Was in for a game or two last fall. So, again, someone that's been around the 40 acres a lot. I would imagine that's going to be the case again this offseason. Blake Gideon, again, another strong relationship here. Gideon's been doing a lot of good work on the recruiting trail in the last couple of cycles. And, Gibson's someone that He's put a lot of work into out of the DFW area. In terms of what Gibson brings to the table, 6 foot, about 6 foot, 5'11", depending on measurements that you look at. I think he's around 170 pounds. So still kind of on the lighter side, but he is, in terms of physical traits, very gifted. Got a lot of speed. Runs track at Lancaster. Pretty decent wingspan, around 6'3". You can use him in a few different coverage schemes. Good in pass coverage, good instincts, plays the ball well. I think there's a couple of different areas he could fit on the Texas defense, so some scheme versatility there as well. Again, high priority target. If Texas could land 2 guys at safety, such as Gipson and Johnson-Rubell, I think that would be a great way to get the defensive backfield going in this class. But again, Gibson, a top name to watch at the safety position. Next up is actually going to be one of the lower rated, if you look at most of the consensus rankings from the major recruiting services, but nonetheless, someone that Kyle Flood and the Longhorns are putting a ton of effort into on the recruiting trail, and that's with 3-star or 4-star, depending on the service you look at. Interior offensive lineman Daniel Cruz, kid hailing out of Richland High School in North Richland Hills, again around the DFW area. This is a recruitment again. It's going to come down to a lot of the in-state schools: Baylor, Texas A&M, Texas, all involved here. I think there's a few out-of-state schools that are going to try to jump in here, but OU being one of them. I think Ohio State was an offer that came in Ohio State was one of the offers that came in not too long ago. He might end up taking a visit there here in the next few months. But I think it's largely going to be in-state schools that it comes down to for his decision. Texas is in a good spot right now. But I got to say this. I think Cruz could be one of the hidden gems in this class. Really, really effective in pass blocking and run blocking. Pretty late at night here. Sorry for that fumbling of words. But he, he's already showing a lot on film, from sophomore and junior seasons. He's a good pull blocker, good feet, good hands, good pad level technique. And I think one of the more underrated offensive linemen in this class. Kyle Flood is done a nice job here. Getting foot in the door pretty early. He was on campus for a visit last summer, and then was also on campus for junior day. It sounds like another visit is in the works for the spring as well. So this is definitely going to be one to watch because there are very few interior offensive linemen that Texas is prioritizing more at the moment. The next one up on the list is one of the top linebackers in the 2024 class. And I believe the top-rated linebacker out of the state of Texas, 4 or 5-star, depending on, again, the service you look at. Oak Ridge linebacker Justin Williams. This one is one that I think that Texas is going to be pushing for a while. Williams is a heavy Oregon lean right now. Texas and Texas A&M are still fighting, but I think Oregon's got a pretty decisive edge heading into the spring. He's visited Oregon a few times now. Seems like he's got good relationship with Chris Hampton and that staff over there under Dan Lanning. They got an early lead, and as much as I think Texas wants to continue the linebacker momentum or the momentum at the linebacker position on the recruiting trail, especially after landing the number 1 linebacker in the 2023 class in Anthony Hill, this one's going to be a tough one to pull off. I don't know if this is necessarily one you would say that they still recruit through the whistle, that they're going to push through the finish line on signing day, but it definitely has the makings of one that they're putting a lot of effort and attention into right now. So in terms of what Williams brings to the table, unquestioned talent, around 6'2", 6'3", 190 pounds, absolute thumper at the linebacker position, plays the run really well, finds the ball well, playmaker. In terms of his early impact ability at the next level, he's someone that would be able to come in and compete for reps right away. If Texas loses a guy like Jalen Ford next season, getting a guy like Justin Williams in this class would be huge upon the move to the SEC. So, again, this is definitely one to watch, and he's highly coveted by a lot of schools. I think there's a few in the mix right now, and Oregon is definitely the main one. Next up is one that Texas has a better shot with, I would say, than Justin Williams, but that's the 5-star Waco Connolly cornerback Kobe Black. Uh, this is going to be another interesting recruitment in the defensive backfield for Texas. Kobe Black is someone that a lot of schools are after right now. He's got pretty good relationships with a number of different staffs in the Big 12 around the state of Texas. His older brother plays at Oklahoma State, so he's obviously visited a lot there. Texas A&M has come on really strong. OU really likes him. But even some SEC schools are jumping into the mix here. LSU is going to be one to watch. Texas, I think they're in a good spot here. Not a great spot, though. I think there's still some work to do. Terry Joseph has a pretty good relationship. PK is also one of the leading recruiters in frequent communication with Kobe. I think that the spring and summer are going to be huge here. Texas is probably going to have to make a sizable move coming out of the spring to really feel good about where they're standing. But, Texas clearly wants Kobe Black in this class. Texas had a strong recruiting class at corner and at safety in the 2023 class with Derek Williams and Malik Muhammad. But you want to continue that recruiting momentum to keep some strong depth at corner. Kobe Black is the best in-state corner in the 2024 class. Texas is going to continue recruiting him as such. So I would watch for I don't know if it'll be an official visit, but a visit during the spring or summer. It's going to be the next steps to watch here. Moving into the top three now. I think these three names at this point, if you follow Texas recruiting, are going to be very familiar. The first one up is the 5-star IMG Academy running back, Jared Gibson. The number one running back recruit in the nation for the 2024 class, someone that Texas has a lot of momentum with right now. Tashard Choice, I mentioned that name for all the running backs we've talked about so far, but I haven't been more impressed with the work that Tashard Choice has done building relationships on the recruiting trail with anyone compared to Gibson for this cycle. Tashard Choice was a huge reason why Texas landed Cedric Baxter Jr. in the 2023 class, and I would have to say the same if Texas is able to land Gibson in the 2024 class. I haven't seen Gibson speak as glowingly of any recruiter or any coach as he has Tashard Choice. He did an interview with On3's Chad Simmons earlier this week talking about, or at least gave some words in a piece that was released by Chad Simmons, where he spoke, again, very, very highly of Tashard Choice, essentially just saying the way that he connects with the players and the way that he's been able to recruit and develop talent. I believe Tashard Choice was the first one to offer Jared Gibson, and that's back when Choice was the running backs coach at Georgia Tech. So this is a long-standing relationship. Goes back a couple of years. I like where Texas sits here. There's an official visit on the books, I believe, in late June. And then Texas also got a crystal ball earlier today, because we're filming on February 27th, from 247 Sports Recruiting, I believe National Recruiting Director Steve Wilfong. It was with moderate level of confidence, I believe a 6 out of 10, but that's still definitely something to note when Wilfong puts in a crystal ball. So again, Texas sitting really good right now. Gibson clearly the top priority at running back in the 2024 class. Not discounting anything the Peoples or Tatum brings to the table, but especially if Texas takes 2 running backs in this class. But where Texas stands with Gibson right now is fantastic. They definitely could be in a spot to get the number one running back recruit in the nation 2 straight recruiting classes. So excited to see what this recruitment brings in the next few months. Next up on the list, we have 5-star Temple Lake Belton wide receiver Micah Hudson, one of the most exciting prospects to watch on film in the 2024 class. It seems like there's a lot of schools that are still involved here. Texas Tech has made an impression early. Texas A&M is definitely making a huge push. OU still working very hard to try to chip away at the likes of Texas and Texas A&M for Hudson, even Ohio State involved. But, Texas has made some moves here since last fall. There was that story of him joining the Texas side when he was visiting for Red River last year, and him missing out on a private training session with Margin Hooks in Waco last month to be able to at least make it to campus for junior day. But he's visited like 3 or 4 times since last summer. I believe it's 4 times if you include the OU game. And so he's been around Texas a lot. I believe Chris Jackson has established a pretty good relationship here early on. Hudson's also had consistent communication with Steve Sarkisian himself. So a lot of good things happen in this recruitment for Texas, but this is one that I think is going to drag out at least another 6-8 months. This one looks like it could go through the fall. So a long way to go, but Texas made some good moves early. They're going to need to continue to push a lot of the right buttons during the summer. Because like I said, this recruitment is probably going on for a while. Next up, and the number one priority recruit that I have on this list is the 5-star, number 1 ranked edge rusher in the nation, again, depending on the service you look at. Colin Simmons, about 6'3", 230 pounds, out of Duncanville High School in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Simmons is a beast. Again, if you follow Texas recruiting or just college football recruiting in general, you probably have heard this name. Simmons is a guy that I think Texas has made up a lot of ground with here lately. I don't think that Texas was necessarily behind in this recruitment. If you go back, maybe say like last summer, but LSU really jumped out to a nice early lead, and there were a lot of SEC schools in the mix. Georgia's had a lot of momentum lately. Alabama's been making a big push lately. A&M has tried to stay around in this recruitment as well. In state, though, Texas and TCU are also making a lot of noise. This is one that TCU has made a big push for early on, and I think we'll continue to get visits from Simmons through the spring and the summer. They got one as recently as late January, so just a few weeks ago. I do believe Simmons is slated to be on campus in Austin here in the next few months, but he hasn't visited Texas, I believe, since last fall. I think it was actually the TCU game that he was on campus for last. But there's quite a few schools here in the mix that he hasn't visited in 2023 yet. I believe the only 2 visits he's taken unofficially in 2023 to like major contenders in this recruitment are Georgia and TCU. But yeah, like I said, LSU, Texas, Georgia, OU, it's going to be another one that's still fighting in the mix. But, for Texas to be able to win this recruitment, there's going to be a winning formula of you have to show some strides on the field during the fall. Because, again, I think that this recruitment could end up going through the fall, definitely going through the whistle, because this is one that Texas has not given up on. They're going right through the finish line. If there was any one recruitment on the defensive side of the ball to do that in the 2024 class, it's definitely this one. But yeah, I think you got to show the production on the field this fall. Obviously, you got to continue to show him. Everyone's making Simmons a huge priority right now. So that's a given in this recruitment. You got to continue to do that. But you're really going to have to make a huge impression on the times he actually visits campus and keep him around campuses. I won't say as much as possible, but to be able to at least keep him around the 40 enough to keep him in constant communication with Sark and to continue to make those positive impressions, because he's going to be a busy guy during the summer and during the fall. A lot of visits, and I believe coming off a state championship at Duncanville, so a lot to live up to again for a senior campaign there. But yeah, this is a major one. Texas, again, I think they've done a lot of good stuff lately. He's spoken really highly of Sark and the entire Longhorn staff in the last few months in interviews he's done and from what I've heard. So someone that looks the part, clearly a major talent on the field, will be an immediate difference maker at Texas. So this last, I got cut off there at the very end, but yeah, last thing I was saying on Simmons was I think the move to the SEC is going to be big for him. He's got a lot of SEC schools already going after him and that are among his top schools at the moment. So I think the ability to play his entire career in the SEC and really get to play against that top level of competition in that spotlight is going to be big. So, and mention this on the side, everything that Texas can get that's an advantage in their favor, they will take in this recruitment. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I know it ran around 30 minutes, so thank you all for sticking with me if you stuck through to the very end here. But yeah, we'll continue to kind of keep pulse on the recruiting trail, but follow the site. That's where we have recruiting stuff up pretty much every single day. Again, as always, that will be linked in the description below. But anyway, for Andrew Miller, Hook'emHeadlines.com, that's pretty much it. Hook 'em.